I mean, how silly is that?
Pulls off three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Wins the game at the buzzer!
Hello, welcome back to the Hoop Junkie Podcast, the number one sports podcast in the world.
According to us.
I'm your host, Zach. I'm joined as always by the one and only playoff man himself, Chance Baker. How you doing today, Chance?
Man, I'm not going to lie. I'm really nervous today. The Grizzlies got a big elimination game coming tonight, and this series has just not looked great so far. So I'm feeling very anxious about today. But, yeah, it is what it is.
I know you're on pins and needles right now, but hey, look at the bright side, man. Hey, you're going to the game today, right? So
that is true. Yep.
So
we'll be in attendance together. So we'll be either writing the Grizzlies eulogy from the stands, or we'll be getting ready for Game 6 in LA. We'll see.
Well, look, hey, before we get to that game and some of the other elimination games we got today, Chance. We did have two teams that did get eliminated, Chance.
Yep.
So to all our junkies out there, you know what that means. It's time for those good old NBA playoff eulogies.
Yep, we've got a doubleheader tonight. Thank you all for being here. Going to start with the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves began their season on October 19th, 2022, and were eliminated from the playoffs on April 25th, 2023. It was a wild season for the Timberwolves. They decided to go all in over the summer on Rudy Gobert, trading 5 first-round picks and multiple role players to acquire him. While it's only been one season, it's not a hot take to say that this may go down as the worst trade in NBA history. The Wolves struggled mightily to start the year, and Rudy Gobert played nowhere near the value of what he was acquired for. It didn't help that fellow big man Karl-Anthony Towns missed the majority of the season with a calf injury. However, Anthony Edwards took another leap this year. He had his first All-Star season, and the Wolves eventually clawed their way into the playoffs. This, of course, wasn't without more drama, as Rudy Gobert literally punched his teammate Kyle Anderson during the very last game of the regular season. During the same game, Jaden McDaniels broke his hand by punching a wall, which took him out for the year as well. Overall, it's hard to look at this season as a success. They traded their entire future for a guy who was not a noticeable difference maker, and we still don't know if anyone in the NBA actually likes being teammates with Rudy Gobert, aside from Mike Conley, who basically gets along with anyone. But the Wolves will hope to build on next season and hope their players can keep their hands to themselves for a full year. Maybe then they'll sniff the second round. Any thoughts on the Timberwolves, Zach, before we put them in the ground for good?
Man, well, you know, that whole series, I think that was probably the least covered series by us.
It was, yeah.
Because, I mean, we knew what was going to happen going into that series. There was no doubt in my mind it would end this way. Minnesota has some serious questions to answer going into this offseason. And, you know, honestly, what they got going on, it's not going to work. And this is going to be one of those situations where we really sit there and see if this new ownership is going to buy into this team and really try to force these puzzle pieces that don't fit. Or do you sit here and say, hey, now is the time to make a chance. Let's give Ant his extension. Let's move on from Cat. We got to keep Gobert for reasons of what we did. I mean, we're going to see. Or do they hold on to this like a man holding on to his thinning hair? I think, and if I had to bet on the Timberwolves, just based off of Alex Rodriguez's hair, I think they're going to hold on to the hair.
They're going to hold on. Yeah, I mean, like you said, if they're making a move, it's got to be Cat, just because of the way their roster is built. They went all in on Gobert, so if they're making a move, it's going to be him. I think, you know, they played better to end the season until Rudy Gobert just went rogue and started throwing haymakers, but they were looking better. Anthony Edwards clearly took a leap. He looks like a dominant two-way player at this point. I always thought he had potential on the defensive end, and he clearly showed that effort at times this year. So I still don't think, with the roster currently constructed, that pairing with Cat and Gobert makes sense long term. But I'm with you. I wouldn't be surprised if they roll it back one more year and see what happens. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer to see how they recover. They basically have no assets left, so it's trade Cat or nothing at this point.
Yep.
Moving on, the Los Angeles Clippers began their season October 19th, 2022, and they were also eliminated from the playoffs on April 25th, 2023. The Clippers entered the season with championship expectations, but ultimately ended up falling victim to the same old story we see from them every single year. You know, a team built around Kawhi Leonard and Paul George is going to struggle with injuries, so we shouldn't be surprised, and this year is absolutely no different. Both players load managed their way throughout the entire season, but only to end up on the sidelines again to end the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard began the first round looking like the best player on the floor, and these are in games that included Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But he ultimately suffered a torn meniscus and once again had to watch his team get eliminated from the bench. Now the future is up in the air for the Clippers. They have a lot of money tied up in two superstars who are dominant when healthy, but when healthy is the largest asterisk in the world when it comes to these two. Unless they think Russell Westbrook can lead them to a title in 2024, the Clippers have some major decisions to make this summer. What are your thoughts on this Clippers team, Zach?
Yeah, the Clippers might be in one of the worst situations in basketball because what can you do?
Yeah, we kind of discussed this last week. There's really not much for them to do other than run it back and just cross your fingers, right?
That's all you can do. You got this new arena getting built. You can't really blow it all up now and go into a new arena, having to fill all those seats, saying, "Oh, hey, Terrence Mann and Norman Powell are my are our centerpieces," right? You can't go into that. So I'm really curious to see what they do, what type of moves around the fringes they make, because it's looking a little bleak for them too, mostly because of injuries.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. Like we said, they load manage throughout the whole season, and you still have injuries at the worst time. Kawhi, was taking a lot of heat because it was a knee sprain, or we thought it was a knee sprain, and he kept sitting out. And so I kind of heard, circles, all the hot takes were that Kawhi Leonard just didn't care to play and wasn't built for it. So I think the Clippers, it's kind of interesting that they held out that it was a torn meniscus until they were eliminated. I think they could have saved Kawhi a lot of, public outbursts by just saying that on the front end instead of just saying it's a knee sprain and he's sitting with that. So that was kind of an interesting move. But at the end of the day, it's just the same old story with them. And I don't know what they do other than run it back next year and just hope and pray to the basketball gods that they finally get a year where they're both healthy, because we haven't seen this in 3 years now. So
Well, one problem with it, Chance, too, I think they probably kept it under wraps because the truth of the matter is I think he actually injured himself game one and he played on a torn meniscus. And so
that is true.
I don't think that the Clippers want that smoke from the NBPA.
Yeah, could be the case.
Well, hey, Chance, before we move into coverage on some of these other teams, I don't know. Did you see the news that Ime Udoka got a job? He got a gig. Do you have any takes on that?
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. I think, contrary to the Nets situation, they've kind of let the dust settle a little bit with that situation. They, according to them, they didn't find anything that, is damning enough to keep him out of the league for good. We still don't really have a lot of clarity on what exactly happened in Boston, but I think it's a good fit. I think, they've got a lot of talent over there in Houston. They just need some leadership. I think, there's rumors of James Harden coming over there. Obviously, Harden has not quite looked himself the past couple of months, so we'll see if that even were to be a big difference maker. But they could use a couple of vets along with strong leadership. I think it's a good move. The Rockets have some potential, and they could be a sneaky, OKC type of team next year that kind of makes that run into the play-in. So I like it for them, unless we, find out more details of what he did. And it's like, oh, yeah, he should have never been hired. But as of now, we just have what we got, and I think it makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously, all the rumblings, all we get is rumors from our end, right? But if you look at all the rumors surrounding Ime Udoka, most of it just kind of seemed like it wasn't a thing where that was too problematic to the point to which he could return. If you're picking up what I'm putting down,
Right.
And so I think a lot of it just had to do more so with the organizational problems in there. And so from that standpoint, I think Houston got a good coach. I think that he is probably the perfect coach for what they need. Stephen Silas is a great coach in his own right, as far as being known as one of the greatest offensive minds the game has seen, right, from a lot of standpoints. And even with his history of being Paul Silas' son, he's always been around the game. Steven Silas was a good coach, but I think
Yeah.
what this team needs is someone to come in that's a strong leader that's going to implement a winning culture. And
Mm-hmm.
Ime Udoka has proven that everywhere he's been a part of a change and setting that culture. So
Right.
shout out to them. I think they've got something they can build on. Their owner Tillman was talking at the press conference saying that they got $60 million in cap space to use. So we'll see what they're going to use it on. It's been rumblings about James Harden, like you said. Is that the way to go that I think that they need to do? Probably not. I don't think they need to revisit that. However, maybe they've got plans to ship off some of these young guys and then bring in James Harden, and then maybe they look out and get Wembanyama. And then they've got a solid core. So just how I talked about it on a couple other pods ago about how like San Antonio's rebuild might be a lot quicker than people think. I think Houston is in prime position as well to surprise people in a very similar fashion to like the Sacramento Kings. I don't think they're going to go on and be a top 3 seed all year long in the Western Conference as far as turnarounds for both of those teams, but I do see a path to both of them being play-in contenders next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the draft lottery will speed up somebody's rebuild regardless. Whoever gets that one pick, that rebuild's getting expedited by a couple years right off the top.
Right. Well, yeah, even if you get a top 3 pick in this year's draft, like all those guys are supposed to be impact players coming into the game. So it's all, everything's on the table right now. I think we can see a lot of a shake-up and parity in the league. And then, like we talk about it all the time, this play-in game stuff has really opened the league wide up. It's turned everything on its back. So it's going to be interesting to see what Houston does this offseason for them. But then as far as those other 2 teams, the Clippers and the Timberwolves, shout out to them for having interesting seasons. But it looks mighty bleak. Now, so Chance, we've got a huge slate of games today, and for scheduling purposes, the NBA's got to stop doing this stuff, man. They got to stop. they got to stop scheduling these games this way, man. Because we start off with a game at 6:00, Knicks Cavs, and then a game at 30 minutes later at 6:30. We've got the Lakers Grizz, and then we
Heat
got a
Bucks
little.
at 8:30.
Yep, a little bit of a break, which is good. At 8:30, we got Heat Bucks, but then in 30 minutes, right after that, we got the Warriors Kings. They got to find a way to start these games at different times or whatever, because man, it's hard to just catch all of them at the same time.
Yeah, it's hard. I think, they could have staggered it a little better. Obviously today's day and age, you can have different iPads and computers, but most people that are watching the NBA want to watch it on the big screen. And unless they have some split screen capabilities, then yeah, it's going to be interesting. And, for us, we'll be at the game, the Grizzlies game. So we'll have to keep up with the Knicks Cavs on the phone or something. And I'm sure that one will be a good one too. But yeah, I wish they would space them out a little bit, because they're basically they've got 2 games starting at roughly the same time and the next 2 starting roughly the same time. They could have staggered it out more, but it is what it is. Definitely a interesting slate of games with a lot of high stakes basketball happening tonight for sure.
Man, we got a lot. So look, we'll start with that first game, Chance. Knicks Cavs, man. We go into this elimination game, and this was one of those series that you and I said was going the distance. Now, do you still feel that way?
This one is tough. I do think the Cavs have a better chance than people think to come back from 3-1. I think Donovan Mitchell's obviously due for a big game. He has struggled a lot this series, especially in the last one. Mitchell's a superstar, and I think I said before that you need your superstars to get you at least 1 or 2 games in a playoff series, like off the bat. Your role players are going to win you 1 or 2, but you need your superstars to get you a game or 2. Garland got him 1 in 1 game, but Mitchell hasn't really showed up yet, and it's been interesting because he's a guy that historically has been a great playoff performer in those Jazz years. Obviously, the bubble year when he was averaging 45 a game, which is nuts. But even the other years with the Jazz, he's always been a guy that didn't shy away from the moment, and I feel like that's going to, keep the same. I think he's going to bounce back and have a big game. I don't see him letting his team get eliminated, especially at home tonight. So I think the Cavs win tonight. Once it gets to Game 6 in New York, that's where it's going to be really tough. I would probably flip my pick based on how the series has looked so far and go with the Knicks in this one, but it's not out of the realm of possibility for the Cavs. If they can just win tonight, go get that game 6 on the road, then anything can happen in a home game 7. And that's kind of a reoccurring theme with a lot of these series where the home teams are down
Mhm.
3-1. But if I had to pick right now, I'd say the Knicks probably finish this in 6, but I do expect the Cavs to stay alive and win one tonight.
Man, I don't know, man. I think I think Jalen Brunson has popped these boys in the mouth, man. I think
Mm-hmm.
in a very similar fashion, this series has kind of reminded me uh, of Jalen Brunson. That his play has reminded me. If you remember last year in that round one series, Mavs versus
Mm-hmm.
the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell versus Jalen Brunson. Um, uh, Luca actually didn't play the first half of that series.
Mm-hmm.
And no Luca, no problem. Jalen Brunson pretty much took it to Donovan Mitchell and looked like the better player on the court. And it's
Yeah,
and,
that's where a lot of that contract came from, is how he played
yeah,
in that playoff series.
exactly. And it's funny because a year later, we look and they're playing against each other again in the first round, and
And
it's
he's doing
almost
the same thing.
it's the same story. So man, I'm actually going to go. I'm riding with the visiting team, Knicks,
You
in
think they
this
finish
one,
it
and
out?
I think they close out this game, man. But we'll see. Wouldn't be surprised if Donovan Mitchell goes off for 45 and 8, and then this whole narrative changes.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
but I do like what I've seen out of the Knicks. And shout out to Tibbs for benching Julius for the win the other day, because um,
Mm-hmm.
we know Tibbs has been a guy who has always been questioned for adjustments at times. But he sat Julius Randle, and then look, they ended up going on and winning that game. And then
That is that is part of why I think the Cavs could come back, because from what I read, Julius Randle was not too happy about that. And I think in situations where you get benched down the stretch and your team loses, I think it's okay to be pretty upset and be vocal. But when your team still wins the game and you got benched, I think you need to be happy for your team and say the right
to
things. And I didn't really get that from him.
and that is the like Chance. We both played enough basketball. We've been taken out of games before, and our team went ahead and won in spite of us. You
Right.
know, like
Yeah. If it's not your night, it's not your night.
it's not your night. You should still be happy. The game goes on, and you won. And you got a W, man. Like that is some of the most like selfish stuff I've seen out of a player. Like you not go and we'll talk about some of the media stuff too, like with these players skipping these media times, which is, in my opinion, is kind of whack and lame. Like,
Agree.
you know
Agree.
what I mean? Like it's your job. Just go there and pull a Marshawn Lynch. Like, I don't get it. But I understand it's playoff basketball. A lot of these guys are in their emotions and their feelings and all that stuff. But for him to do that after a W is very suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but however, man, shout out to Tibbs for doing that. In spite of Julius Randle is one of Tibbs' guys, right?
Yep.
But sometimes, man, the playoffs, man, it's all about adjustments. That's all the playoffs is adjustments and matchups. And usually the best team doesn't always win. But that's what it is. Uh, Lakers and Grizzlies, Chance. That's the 6:30 game. Chance, your Grizz have not looked great, man. They haven't looked great.
Yep.
You can, I think a lot of it probably does come down to depth. The depth is a huge issue for the Grizz, but also there have been some consistent theme to some of these issues that they've had all year long. Is what do we do in the half court offense?
Yep.
I think maybe not having Steven Adams is probably a big piece of that. Not having that big screen setter.
Mm-hmm.
That so much of Memphis's offense is centered around John Morant initiating the offense off of drives.
Mm-hmm.
I think his loss is a big blow, but then also losing Brandon Clark in your rotation, because you see guys getting foul trouble, and it's like, then what do you do? What is your takeaway from everything that's going on, Chance, with the Memphis Grizzlies?
I think you said it. I think it's, a couple of things both on court and off court. On court, like you said, half court offense is a huge problem. Steven Adams made up for that in a lot of ways. The screen setting, like you mentioned, creating space. He's one of the best screen setters in the league, but also the offensive rebounding. The Grizzlies are just not a good shooting team in general. And when you're missing a lot of shots, if you have one of the best offensive rebounds in the league, that can really open up a lot more opportunities for you. So missing that really hurts. And with Jaren, Jaren, hope nobody's getting arrested before the game over there.
That's what it looks like. I guess some angry Memphis fans out there getting arrested.
Yeah, they're getting rowdy already. Man, we better be ready tonight. But with Jaren, Jaren really came on to end the season, and that could be an answer to your half court woes. You just give the ball to Jaren and clear out, let him go to work in the post. But there's a few players in the NBA that you just can't ISO post up against, and Anthony Davis is one of those, and he has been absolutely dominant on the defensive end. His offense has kind of come and gone in waves this series, but one thing that's been consistent is Anthony Davis has been an absolute terror on the defensive side, and so when you're taking that away, they just don't have a lot of options. I personally think they look better with Luke Kennard out there, even if he's not putting up shot attempts because he just spaces the floor out so much. Dylan Brooks, obviously not so much. And Dylan Brooks is a whole nother discussion for Grizzlies fans to decide what, happens to him this offseason. But based on how this series has been, a lot of Grizzlies fans are out on Dylan Brooks. And, I think they need somebody else that can space the floor along with Bane. And even Bane has not shot well from three. Bane is somebody that's made up for a lot of the shooting lack thereof because he's been so good, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league the last couple of years. And he's not hitting his shot either. He made up for that in other areas, driving to the rim last game. But it's just a matter of, can you hit shots and hit enough shots to get your game 5 at home? And then it's similar to what we mentioned before. Then you go to a game 6 in LA and, just play the game of your life. All of a sudden you're back to game 7. I think having 2 out of 3 at home gives Memphis a fighter's chance, but they have not looked good and they have a lot of issues. And that's just on the court. Off the court, you talked about it. Ja and Dylan Brooks both skipping out on their media availability. I agree. I think that's whack, as you put it. I think, not that I think that, the media deserves to speak to the players and all this, like, that's whatever, that's neither here nor there, but you're setting up your teammates to dry because who's out there? Jaren's out there answering questions. Bane's out there answering questions, and you're putting them out there all by themselves when you're supposed to be the leader. A lot of people look at Ja as the leader of this team because he is the superstar, but also if you ask players like who is the heartbeat of the team, and they'll say it's Dylan Brooks. So those are supposed to be your 2 vocal leaders on the team. And they both, in different instances, Ja with the, fine in the West, which has been a little overblown, but he did say it. And then Dylan Brooks with, all of his antics. When those are the 2 loudest guys throughout the season, and then you're not showing up after losses, I think that's a pretty bad look. So, I disagree with that. And I think even Taylor Jenkins called him out before the game. And he basically said in his pregame availability, I don't know if he caught this, but he was like, I think our team has a lot of maturing to do. We're an immature team right now. And I think, he said that for a reason because there's been a lot of things. And this is all stuff that we just see about. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors as well.
Man,
so I think the team has a lot.
Yeah, we don't know half of the stuff that's going on.
Exactly. Like what all was going on with Ja before it even got to this point. Like I think the team has a lot of growing up to do, which is why I do think they have a fighter's chance. But because of that maturity, I don't know how you stay focused and locked in to beat LeBron 3 games in a row in a do or die situation. So my guess would be the Grizzlies do win tonight. They're back at home. They'll have the home crowd. But ultimately, my prediction will be the Lakers end up closing this one out. But they do have a fighter's chance.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Lakers close this one out at home. I think the Grizz do get a win tonight, but yeah, man, some concerning stuff, man. You hate to see it too with this team because they're so fun to watch, and like they're easy to root for, in a lot of ways. But then this season has been one of those seasons where they have become easy to root against.
If I was an impartial fan, there's no way I'd be rooting for the Grizzlies. They're basically a laughing stock of the league with all of the talk and then not being able to back it up, and then not only not being able to back it up, but not even showing your face,
not even showing your. Yeah, my thing is if you're gonna say things like I'm fine in the West, or if you're gonna do all this talk about this old man got to go drop 40 off me for me to be concerned, and if you're gonna constantly feed into this narrative of this bad boys Grizzlies team, like the bad boys Pistons, like they talk stuff whether they won or lost.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to embrace it, you have to embrace it. You can't just, ride high when things are going well. And so, for Dylan Brooks, he, made comments about how like, everybody wants me to, makes me out to be the villain. Like, no, you wanted to be the villain. You chose to play that route and you said those things. And so, yeah, you've got to be ready to accept it when things don't go your way and still go out there. And like you said, even if you do a Marshawn Lynch, at least you're showing your face and you're showing that you're there as opposed to just skipping out. I think it's a bad look, makes them kind of get clowned on, and it's going to be a long summer unless things really turn around in this series, which I don't see happening.
Chance, one word that used to be fighting words back in the day when somebody used to call your team this?
What's
front
that?
runner. Front
Front
running,
runner.
bro.
Yep.
The Grizz, they've been front running, man. They've been
Yep.
front running. So anyway, so that's how we think that series is gonna go. Let's go ahead and move on to the Heat Bucks, dude. Jimmy buckets, like, man,
Yeah.
that was one of the most remarkable playoff performances I have ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Period. Like out of anybody. Like in my personal life, like if I sat here and started ranking, I might do that over the offseason is rank all the top playoff performances I've personally witnessed. That is at the minimum top 10.
Oh yeah, it was unbelievable. It's just like a guy that he's always been a great regular season player, but I've never seen a player that just elevates his game this much in the playoffs the way Jimmy Butler does. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
randomly is just like bombing threes after threes. One of them was a long two, but he's just hitting all these jump shots and getting the crowd going. There's one clip where it shows Pat Riley's face. He's just sitting there courtside after Jimmy Butler's doing all this, and he's just smiling like, I cannot believe like we have this guy on our team. And it was incredible. Definitely one of the best playoff. It reminded me of Giannis's 50 in their finals closeout game. LeBron when he had that game against the Celtics, the young LeBron when he scored like 23 points in a row in the fourth quarter. Like it had those types of vibes, even though it's just a first round series because he was just absolutely dominating, and the whole crowd was feeding off of that. It was a lot of fun to watch, and it's interesting because the Heat are up 3-1. And when you look at like the odds of each series, it's 3-1. Like the Lakers are like minus 800 to win. The Knicks are like minus 800. This one's almost like a pick 'em, even with the Bucks down 3-1. Do you think the Heat are being under respected a little bit, or do you think this series is still completely up for grabs?
Man, check this out, dude. I think that this is still serious. I do
Mm-hmm.
think even though the Heat have proven themselves. But if you remember in that game, we got to probably about like in the third quarter ish, where the Bucks felt like they had a control over that game, and it just felt like
Mm-hmm.
honestly they had a control over the series. I think a lot of it just happened to be the Miami just got hot as all get hot as fish grease in the fourth quarter with Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler coming in hitting them with big haymakers. I do feel like the Bucks are banged up. That's the truth. You saw Giannis kept holding his back throughout the game,
Mm-hmm.
constantly getting treatment. Giannis didn't do media because he was most likely getting treatment after the game. So it's no telling if they're shooting him up and sending him out there. What's going on? Ain't no telling. But I do still have hope in this Milwaukee Bucks team, just because the Bucks are banged up, but let's not forget the Heat are too. The Heat is
Mm-hmm.
missing. Arguably it's either second or third best player in Tyler Hero. Well,
Mm-hmm.
from the offensive perspective, and so like they've rolled out Duncan Robinson. He ain't got no play time all year, but now he's finally getting some clock.
He found his mojo again the last couple of games. He's looking like old prime Duncan Robinson from the bubble year.
Right, man. He's stepping up when he's got his time to shine. So but overall, I expect this thing going 7, and then at that point, it's going to be back in Milwaukee. Does Milwaukee still have gas after ripping off 2 straight wins? I don't know, but I don't see Milwaukee just folding in this series. I do see it going 7, and I mean I'm sticking with Milwaukee. I know in Vegas, no, that's probably not the popular bet right now if you're betting today. But I
It's
mean, I'm
closer
betting.
than you would think, though, for a 3-1 series. It's definitely
Yeah,
closer than you would think. I'm with you. I think it's definitely going to be a tough task to close them out, even up 3-1. But I don't know, man. I think Miami, they're just built a little different. With Jimmy Butler, his playoff experience, they're all experienced guys. They are banged up, but I think it's going to be harder than they think for the Bucks to just go back and just flip a switch and all of a sudden start raining off 3 in a row. They're really heavy favorites tonight. I think it's like an 11-point line. So like obviously everybody expects the Bucks to win at home. I am one of those people, but that game 6 in Miami, I think the winner of that game wins the series. I think Miami has a real chance to put them away at home in that one. If they don't, if it goes to a game 7 in Milwaukee, I just find a hard time thinking, even with Jimmy Butler and all of his heroics, I'd have a hard time thinking they can win a game 7 in Milwaukee as long as Giannis is healthy enough to get up and down the court. But if I had to make a call right now, I think I'd go on a limb and say Miami in 6. I think they close it out at home. But this series, I mean, who would have thought? Everybody had this wrote off as a 4, maybe 5 game series at max. The Heat they've lost their first play-in game, right? Like they barely even got into the playoffs, and all of a sudden they just turned the switch, and it's been incredible. Definitely the big surprise of the playoffs so far. And that flips the whole East if they take Milwaukee out.
Dude, the Heat is just like their team is just every year they're like they don't wow anybody in the regular season ever. Like, but in the playoff time, like they have a lot of playoff players, man, on
They
that
do.
roster. Like guys that Jimmy Butler sets the tone for that team. Your star player that goes in any night and then is just a grinder, but then also can come in and just decimate you offensively. I think that's a big thing. Like, I mean, I know Heat talk about Heat culture, Heat culture, Heat culture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shout out to them because Jimmy Butler is the definition of Heat culture. Now, hey, Chance, last game of the night. It's probably the best series going on. Kings Warriors. De'Aaron Fox got a little boo boo on his finger.
Yep.
Does that affect the Kings tonight at home?
I think the Kings can still win tonight. I'm really curious. We don't really know what's up with his finger. We know that initially it came out that he was doubtful. Most of the, doctors on Twitter that I follow were not super optimistic about it, but then there's some more info that came out about, the specific fracture that he has. And now he basically said yesterday, like he fully intends to play. Last I read, he did a 10 shoot around and all signs point to him giving it a go. Whenever the news first came out, I was basically writing off the Kings. I was like, okay, well, this sucks that the series is ending like this, just as all these other series have had major injuries. Here comes De'Aaron Fox. But if he can play and give it a go and be effective, he has his mid-range game, but his game doesn't completely rely on, outside jump shots. So I think I said before the series, I think home court is such a big thing with this, and the Warriors are so bad on the road and the Kings are so good at home, especially, not having a playoff game in 15 plus years. This crowd has been absolutely insane at home. So I think that continues. I think Sacramento wins at home tonight. Golden State wins game 6 at home, and then it goes to a game 7. I'm sticking with Golden State in 7 just because I do think they have the experience to win a game 7, even on the road. But I do think the Kings go out and take care of business tonight at home, as long as Fox is, healthy enough to at least play close to his normal self. I think they've got enough pieces and enough offensive firepower that they can still get it done. But this has been such an entertaining series with the shot making, the pace of play, Draymond's antics. It's all been so fun. It's been like a WWE event, and I absolutely love it. So that's kind of my thoughts, but this one could go either way.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one going either way. Well, look, man, Chance, we got a lot of good basketball tonight.
Yep.
So, look, to all of our hoop junkies, man, we slid this pod in just for you guys because we knew we had 3 elimination games tonight. And then we also had that Warriors Kings series going on. So we want to make sure we got some good content going into these games just so you understood where we stand on them. So hopefully we get to see some of these series extend just for all of us basketball people because, we want the series, we want the NBA to last as long as it can, right? But we'll see how all that goes. But anyways, Chance, you got anything else for everybody out there?
No, I'm with you. Just hoping the series keep going. Hope my Grizz can fight to live another day. But yep, we'll see tonight. Definitely excited for all these games and looking forward to it.
All right, y'all. Until next time, we'll holla at you. Peace.